Welcome! Today we're going on a little expedition, a journey to uncover the real story behind AI and data. Because here's the thing that trips a lot of people up. It's not really about having the most data anymore, it's about having the smartest data strategy. So let's get into it. So let's start with the question on everyone's mind, right? Do you really need big data for AI? There's this myth out there that you need these gigantic, Google-sized data sets just to get started. But is that actually true? Well, as you can probably guess, it's a little more complicated than a simple yes or no. I love this analogy. Think about it. Building an AI model is just like baking a cake. You wouldn't walk into a kitchen and ask, how much flour do I need, without knowing what you're making. Are you baking a few simple cupcakes? Or are you trying to build a 5-tier wedding cake? The recipe, your data strategy, is completely different depending on your goal. Okay, so first things first. Before we gather a single byte of data, we need to map the terrain. We have to know exactly what we're looking for, and maybe even more importantly, what we can actually use. Now, get ready for this because this number is pretty wild. On average, only about 30% of the data that gets pulled together for a project is even usable before it's been cleaned up. Let that sink in. That means almost 70% of your initial effort could be spent on data that's basically just noise. It's proof that quality, not quantity, is king. So why is that quality so absolutely critical? Well, let's look at the basic process. It's pretty straightforward. You provide a high-quality training data, the algorithm chews on that data to generate a model, and then you use that model to predict what's going to happen in the future. The key here is that first step. If your training data is flawed, your model will be too. It's that classic saying, right? Garbage in, garbage out. All right, so we know we need good data. The next big question is, where in the world do we get it? And it really boils down to three main options. You can get it from the real world, you can create it yourself, or you can kind of borrow what's already out there. First up, we've got ground truth data. This is the real deal. It's collected straight from your customers, your factory floor, your sensors. It's as authentic as it gets. But, and you knew there was a but, right? It can be super expensive to get. Sometimes there's just not enough of it, and it can open up a whole can of worms with privacy and compliance. And that brings us to a really powerful solution: synthetic data. This is data that's artificially generated by a computer to perfectly copy the patterns and quirks of real-world data. It's an incredible way to fill in the blanks in your dataset or train a model without ever having to touch sensitive, private information. So, how do you choose? Let's put them head to head. Ground truth data gives you that pure, unvarnished reality, but it comes at a high cost and with those privacy risks. Synthetic data, on the other hand, is an absolute champion when it comes to privacy and scale. You can create as much of it as you need exactly when you need it. The only trick is making sure it's realistic enough for your project. And believe me, this isn't some far-off futuristic idea. It's being used right now to solve huge problems. Just imagine training a self-driving car on millions of simulated high-risk traffic scenarios before it ever hits a real street. Or what about training an AI to spot a rare disease using artificial medical scans, which completely protects patient privacy? It's a total game changer. Now for my favorite part of this expedition, the ultimate shortcut. This is all about working smarter, not harder, by basically standing on the shoulders of giants who have come before us. Look, building a huge AI model from scratch is a massive undertaking. But for a lot of common problems, like understanding language or recognizing objects in a photo, the heavy lifting has already been done. Pre-trained models are like off-the-shelf solutions, ready for you to tweak and use. It's like being a chef. You don't have to grow the tomatoes yourself to make a great sauce. You start with a great base and just add your own unique spices. And here is a perfect example of this hybrid strategy in action. Coca-Cola had a challenge. They needed to moderate images online. For something super specific to them, like identifying their own logos, they built a custom model. But for a general, already solved problem like spotting not safe for work content, they just plugged in a pre-trained model that already existed. Now that is a smart use of time and money. And the efficiency gains here can be staggering. We're not talking about saving a little bit of time, we're talking about completely changing the game. Just listen to this from IBM Research. By using a pre-trained model as their starting point, they needed 100 times less data to train a new system. 100 times. That can be the difference between a project launching in months versus years, or even being possible at all. Okay, we've mapped the terrain, we've gathered our supplies, and we've found the shortcuts. Now it's time for that final checkpoint before you commit your resources and start the big push, the go/no-go decision. Before you take another step, you have to be able to answer these questions with confidence. Do you know exactly what data you need? Do you actually have access to it? Have you really looked into pre-trained options? Is your data quality good enough? If the answer to any of these is, I'm not sure, then you're not ready. It's time to pause. And hey, if you hit one of these roadblocks, that's okay. The absolute worst thing you can do is just ignore it and charge ahead anyway. The smart move is to pause, go back to your original business goal, and maybe adjust the project's scope to fit the data you actually have. That's not failure. That's just a smart, agile strategy. Which really brings us to our big final thought. In a world where powerful AI tools are everywhere, maybe the true competitive advantage isn't about who can build the most complicated algorithm. Maybe, just maybe, it's about who can create the smartest, most efficient data strategy. Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this expedition.